Welcome to a brand new podcast. Ian McLean is a writer and the author of TJ's War. David Blair is an actor and the narrator of the audiobook TJ's War. David and Ian have been listening to their readers and listeners and have decided to turn TJ's War into a movie. And since the story covers the entirety of World War II, the movie will cost at least $50 million. Will David and Ian succeed in their quest? Follow them in this podcast series. We're going to make a $50 million movie.
Good morning,
Yeah.
afternoon.
No. Still morning. Good morning. I'm sure it's
Buonasera.
afternoon somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. Wherever you are, good day to you. How are you?
I'm very well, I think. We've moved house and I've got my new office. So if anyone can see any bricks, it's because my new office is the garage until I've converted it. But
You've been assigned your space.
Yeah, I might sleep here tonight as well. The last 3 months have been all about moving house and getting this house renovated. We knocked down a few walls. And at the same time, over the last 3 months, we've also had a weekly episode of the podcast.
Absolutely. So, folks, this is our 3-month review for Ian and I, founding partners.
That's it.
Of this venture. So we thought we'd check in and sort of have a roundup of where we are, things that might be in the pipeline coming up as well. Might be one or two little interesting snippets of news. Probably can't mention any names yet, but there are people.
I like to think when you don't know where you're going, and there've been quite a few episodes of my life where that's been the case. I like to think of us as a ship in the middle of the ocean, and you can't see any land in front of you. All you've got is the wake behind. So I like to make sure that the wake is not showing that we go round in a big circle or several circles. and looking back over the last 3 months, I think I know that we haven't gone round in circles. I think it's been good, steady progress all the way through.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Good time. An amazingly good time, really.
Yeah.
I didn't think we'd. I thought it'd be fun, and it's been a lot of fun, and there's been a lot of really surprising and positive events happened along those 3 months.
Yeah, and gathering people as well.
Yeah.
That's been the main thing, I think. Gathering people, getting the book and the audio version in front of people, industry people who we can't name yet, but they've been enjoying it.
Yeah.
As you said ages ago, anyone that either reads it or listens to it is captivated. You know, they're on board, they're on side. I guess our job is just to get it into as concise enough form and with a bit of backing to then get it in front of the very right people.
Yeah.
And we're definitely doing that. Absolutely. Yeah, I'd agree. We are not doing which Tintin was it when the Thompson twins were in the desert and they came across some footprints in the sand. Oh my God, we found somebody else. And then they followed these footprints for a while, and then they found another set of footprints. And this kept on happening, and then they eventually realized that they were their footprints and they were just running in circles. Yeah.
No, and we're definitely not doing that.
No.
I think the thing that captivates people about the book is number one, it's not something I've invented, so I'm not claiming any credit for this. I've basically put down a true story, and I put it down in such a way that it hopefully connects, and it does connect. We see it connecting with people today, even though it's 80 and even 90 years after the events that took place. It initially, when I wrote it, it was to connect with my children, and it's just snowballed from there.
Yeah. But as we record, we're in the week of the 80th anniversary of D-Day.
Yeah, 6th of June next week. That's true.
Yeah.
Although to be clear, this story does not really reference D-Day, because there was lots of other things going on, and I think that a lot of the war stories that are out there cover D-Day and the Battle of Britain, and Arnhem. Some tremendous stories and films around that, and the French Resistance. These are all very common themes when people talk about the Second World War. And I think one of the things that surprises people when they read the book is there was actually an awful lot more going on than just that. And the relentlessness of the entire 6 years that the Second World War went on for. And it really was a world war. There was almost no part of the planet that fighting and violence were not taking place on. So,
do you know off the top of your head what TJ was doing now around D-Day?
He was in Norway.
1944.
Yeah,
Norway.
And they on D-Day, when it was announced, I think it was announced the day after D-Day on BBC News that D-Day had started. They were gathered around a radiogram, himself and a number of other members of the Norwegian resistance listening to this.
Yes.
And being surprised, to be honest. TJ wasn't surprised, but the Norwegians were surprised that they'd been primed to expect the invasion to come through Norway and go south, and they'd been primed to expect that to keep drawing German forces into Norway and keep them spread. Churchill's strategy was to spread the Germans as thin as possible right across Europe, and especially keep them away from the North French coast as much as he could, to enable the Allies to have a chance of landing on D-Day. Set Europe alight.
Another episode, folks, which you will delight in listening to or reading when you purchase the book, or the audiobook, which is on Audible. And we, as always, will be putting the link below or at the end of this pod.
I think it's nice to have the book. I think it's nice to. I love books. I like having something I can look at in my books. When I'm writing, if I'm stuck for an idea, just looking at the titles of the books sparks things off, and I can write something else. So I like having that there. But I would say to you, dear listener, dear viewer, that the audiobook is really special. It doesn't, there's not an extra word in it. Every word that David narrates in the audiobook has come from the book, but it's just, it just puts it into life somehow. I think it's, the people have been very complimentary about the written book, but you add something really special. And if you had to choose between the book and the audiobook, I would suggest go for the audiobook, dear reader, dear listener.
Well, I doff my cap.
I doff my cap.
I mean, any actor / narrator or VO artist or whatever will I'm sure agree that you're only as good as your material. So you can't.
It's not just me who thinks so. I mean, just to I'm not sure that we've mentioned this before in any of the episodes, but you were nominated for an award for your performance on that book in the One Voice Awards, the main awards competition for voice actors in the UK.
Didn't win the thing though.
Yeah, but it was, you were.
It was stiff competition.
It was a difficult decision, and you were nominated, which meant that you were, I don't know, top 5.
I forget now. I think there were 6 or 8.
Okay.
Nominees.
6 or 8 out of all those audiobooks that came out last year, or 2023. Yeah. 23 was a competition. That's right. It's very good stuff, even though we say so ourselves.
Well worth a listen. And in fact, one of the people that we are in contact with now, that may or may not make an appearance, but who is slowly joining the fold, was very complimentary about it and was waxing lyrical about how much they had enjoyed it. So yeah, go out and
I used to work for a boss back in my consultancy day. Well, I'm still consulting, but back in my management consultancy days, and I saw him in front of a client once, and he said, "Well, we've done some investigation, and we realize what you're really struggling with right now, and I have the answer here." It's amazingly, it's on this A4 size piece of paper that he'd taken out of his briefcase, and what we can do with this is massively change your company. But I'm not going to tell you what that is yet. And he put it back in his briefcase, and it was actually a blank piece of paper. So,
tell us.
So somebody who will remain completely anonymous and you may meet in the future wax lyrical about the audiobook.
Yes. Somebody in the industry.
Well, yes. And does exist, isn't a blank piece of paper.
No. Hey, before we go any further, I've got an idea for the 6-month review.
Ooh.
How about every 6 months, so not the quarterly review, but the half-yearly review, every 6 months, we have a meeting in person, and we sit around a lunch table, or we find a desk somewhere and get get 1 or 2 mics, whatever, but sit around the same place and have an in-person catch-up to celebrate the success of our last 6 months.
I think that's a great idea.
So that would take us to June, July, the end of August.
All right, let's do that. Wonderful.
Yeah, a summer meetup.
Dear reader, dear listener, I have to say that David and I did not physically meet until after the audiobook had been published. So this is and we currently are what, about 100 miles apart.
In fact, we've only met in person twice.
3 times.
Have we?
Yeah. You came round, and then we had the One Voice Awards, and then we had your 50th, and then we had your 50th birthday party.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, but obviously you being so much younger than me, you wouldn't be expected to remember all that.
My 50th, which was very recent. Yes. Yeah. Slightly more grey.
No, I think that's a great idea. Let's do that. We'll book
Excellent.
it. We'll get in the diaries, and we can even do a food review of the restaurant.
Like it, yeah. So yeah, 3 months. Where are we at? What have we done? We've assembled people.
I was looking at episode 1 just a few days ago, and I was stunned by just how much we've done from there to now. And I think if anybody goes back to episode 1, especially you, David, you were well, this is fun, but there was an element of skepticism in your voice about things like guests. Oh yes, guests. We'll have lots of wonderful guests. And you're not skeptical anymore.
No. No, I think I still think I'm slightly more in the camp of who was it that a little bit of knowledge, was it Orwell? Some phrase about you can be wonderfully naive and you pile in because you don't know anything. You don't know what you don't know. And I'm not a movie producer at all, obviously, but well, I'm becoming one. But I have a little bit of knowledge about TV and that world, so I know how difficult this will be. I know that even despite our best efforts, sometimes our project might be languishing in the long grass somewhere through no fault of our own, but we're just up against thousands of other projects and just fighting to get seen, fighting to get in front of people. Will be the hard work. I think the hard work from here on won't be our hard work. It'll be why isn't this working? We're doing so much good. Sometimes it will just be out of our control. I think that will be wearing. That will be difficult to deal with, and I think that's possibly where my skepticism was coming from. In that this isn't there's a pile of bricks there and some glass and some timber and some girders, Now all we've got to do is find out how to make that into a house. Yes, we've got to do that. We've got to find out how to build this, how to make this movie. But we are also tendering for a very small plot. I'm stretching this analogy as far as I can, of potential movies that can be made. And there are thousands of people with piles of bricks, all eager and knocking on the door. And can we make ours? Can we build our house, please? I foresee, dear listener, that will be our hard work. That will be our, like, you know, we've been doing this for 4 years and we've got so much, we've come so far, and yet no, you know. So we'll see whether that come to be. I obviously hope it'll be quicker than that. But then, oh, what's the Hugh Jackman movie, the circus one? What's it called?
The Showman. Sure.
The Showman. Yeah, took 8 years to make, with Hugh Jackman on board from very early on. He's a bona fide bankable star. You know, it was a great project. Blah blah blah. So
I'll be delighted if we do this in 8 years.
Yeah.
You know, some of the stuff you mentioned there, from my background, I regard these as risks. So we have a risk register and we put those down as risks, and then you put a probability of them coming to fruition. An issue is a risk that has happened. So if they become issues, then what is the mitigating action you should take, and how much does that cost? And then before it becomes an issue, each risk is defined in terms of its impact and its likelihood. And you multiply those two together, and you then get an assessment of that risk, and you then decide whether you need to put some money aside or put some resources aside to mitigate that risk. And when you
depending on the likelihood of it happening.
Exactly.
Got you.
So take all these things that you're talking about. Absolutely, they can happen. If we've got some people that don't take us seriously or take too long, we need to probably do things in parallel so we have other people running at the same time. Whatever we decide to do with that. I think that's fascinating. That's manageable.
I think there's probably a lot of people that just get worn out by the process and they disappear off.
Yeah. If it was just me, or maybe even just you and me, we might run out of steam. What we've done over the last 3 months is start to collect people. And I'm not sure that we were intending to do that when we first started. In episode 1, I'm not sure we were intending to enlarge the team. Of course, with the Quinn, let's not forget Quinn in the background has been doing a lot of work, and we'll be editing this video that we're creating right now. What has happened is that the team has grown organically and magically. First of all, Mark came on board, fantastic Mark Reed with he's extremely well known already in terms of podcasting with Zen Sandwich, which if you haven't listened to, everyone should. It's a great way of getting in touch with your Zen. I knew Mark from when he interviewed me shortly after we published the book. When I told him what we were trying to do with the podcast, he got it immediately and has been a fantastic support. So he came on board. He brings, we're not podcasters. We're becoming podcasters. We're not producers, but we're becoming producers and all these things. But Mark is a very good podcaster. Yeah. And he is bashing his head against a brick wall, trying to get us to become really good podcasters too. And he's already been in a number of episodes that we've done over the last 3 months. And you can definitely see the difference when Mark's in the mix. In terms of there are fewer silences as we think of what to say next. But then
I was just demonstrating one there.
but then Mark came along. That was very effective. He introduced us to Sia. She is just a ball of energy, and not just not a naive ball of energy. She's got tremendous depth and experience in exactly the areas that we need someone to come in and do this. And she has very quickly taken on the role of chief of staff and marshals us all over the place. So Sia has come on board, and Mark is based in Japan and Sia is based in Texas. And she has introduced us to we're just getting deeper and deeper, or closer and closer towards the people who can make decisions that change everything.
Mm.
So she introduced us to Janice.
Hollywood producer.
Yeah. What did you make of that meeting?
Fascinating. She came across as being a very, I don't know, her
Pragmatic?
Yes, pragmatic, but she had a really, for someone who is obviously successful and of a certain stature in her work life, she was very engaged, and she had a very, if I say the word beguiling, I don't mean that in the wrong way. I mean, she had a very disarming and lovely way about her, in that she was there was something quite humble about her in the way that she was, deeply listening to us, the relative newbies in the situation, and what we wanted to do, and our thoughts. I was very impressed by her.
Yes, and
aside from the actual practical tips that she was giving us as well.
Exactly. Which weren't, I mean, it was more than tips. I mean, there were some really big strategic movements through that discussion, and I think I was probably struggling to work out what I'm thinking before that meeting. But when she said, look, you don't need to take anybody else on board, you are the producers, when she said that was exactly it.
We have permission.
It was something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's right. We're not trying to impress producers and get them to take this and make it into a movie for us. We need an executive producer.
Yes, there will be when it comes to the time, and that will be obvious. We will need people whose job it is to take it to the next whatever. But for now, absolutely.
No, I don't think they go away. They take it and go away.
No.
I think the executive producer is part of the production team, and we are still very much part of it.
Yeah,
and helping to drive it forward. But that's not to say that we would control the artistic direction of the production. I think that the executive producer will pull together director and arts director and cinematographer and all of it, and they will all do their thing. And just as this podcast has already gone off in directions I had no idea they would do, I think the final production of the film stroke TV series will do exactly the same. I think it'll be something that we've never dreamed of.
Could we have really ever imagined how big it will be?
Well, if it achieves world peace, I'll be happy.
There you go. Get your tux ready. Several tuxes.
Yes.
One, because the first one will wear out.
There's one more guest that I wanted to cover, because I think, and that's Sincera.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Because Sia found him, and we had Quinn producing an AI voice to introduce the first couple of episodes, and I said to Quinn, this is just we need something better. And Sia either heard that conversation somehow or whatever, but introduced us to Sincera. And Sincera's come along, and he produced these intros and outros, and they are just like liquid chocolate. It's just, if you can imagine a film, and back in the day, I don't think they do it quite the same way now, but back in the day, you'd have these adverts for films in the cinema before the main feature would start, and it'd say, "Can you imagine in 1945 what was going on?" And that's what he does, and he does it better than I've ever heard it before. And we've got him doing this for our podcast. So we then talked to him and realized that this guy is much more than just a voice. That was a hell of a podcast. The 2 episodes, the second part 2 of that went out today. But I think that's my favorite. I think they're my favorite so far. We kind of left behind how to get this film made, and went into the real guts of why it should be made. the damage that's been done and the ways that we can actually start to mend this. I thought that was tremendous.
And just after that, the Conservatives announce a form of national service. We're not going to go political on you, dear viewer, listener.
I'm not sure I can keep that promise.
It
Politics
might be wonderful. It might be terrible. We're not going to go there. But
politics is from the Greek for people.
Yes.
We're all about the people.
Yeah. But no, absolutely. It's a fascinating cast we've assembled, our company of players so far.
To find out more about the book, visit tjswar.com. And to buy it, click on the Amazon link below. To accompany us on our journey, please subscribe to this podcast because we're going to make a $50 million movie.